Well, thank you for coming tonight. First, I want to start with the acknowledgement. We acknowledge and appreciate that the land on which we gather is the traditional unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq First Nations, and they have occupied this territory since time immemorable. Any call to order? Any declarations of conflict of interest? Councillor Drawn, any?
No, nothing to see.
Deputy Mayor Yankoff?
No conflicts for me, Your Worship.
Okay. On the agenda, we have draft official plan. Now, this is the draft. This is not the final plan. It's the draft official plan review. This request is to convene. We're at a public meeting to allow residents and other interested persons to make representations on the new draft official plan for the City of Charlottetown before consideration before Planning Act, or SPEI 1988, P-88, P-8 of the Prince Edward Island. Okay, I need someone to approve the agenda. Moved by Councillor Ramsey, second by Councillor Mattard. All those in favor? Councillor McCabe? Councillor Drawn?
I'm in favor, thank you.
Deputy Mayor?
I'm in favor, thank you.
Are you there, Councillor McCabe?
I am, and I'm in favor. Thank you.
Okay, so I will start off, but I want to welcome Nicholas Kuhl from O2 Design and Stefan Coinblanc, who is with Upland Consulting. Both of these gentlemen have been with the city for the last 2 years working on this project. And tonight, after lots of consultation, they have a draft official plan for presentation. We do have Donna Miller-Ayton, who is our manager of policy and heritage. We do have our manager, David Gundrum, who is the manager of planning and development. And we do have our director of integrated growth, Mr. Michael Russ. And behind me in the corner is our CAO, Sue Fraser. So that is the introduction of staff, and the only councillor we met, John McAleer, is he calling in? Jason? Councillor McAleer? So the only councillors that are missing, Councillor McAleer and Councillor Tweedle. We have 3 that are calling in. So before, as I said, while we're back to in-person meetings, at this time, residents will still have the option to participate via Microsoft Teams. We do have a couple that are participating tonight. And now this meeting will be live streamed in YouTube. So what you missed tonight or what you want to review, just go to YouTube, City of Charlottetown, and you'll see this meeting as scheduled for March 12th, 7 p.m. And it is at our website, www.charlottetown.ca video. Planning board meeting, planning board members, I think I only see one, that's Bob Kenny. So Bob's here and David Essery is down there too. So we do have 2 members. And one of the residents joining us by Teams is Andrea Battison. And now I'm going to turn it over to Deputy Mayor Yankoff, who is the Chair of Planning, Development and Heritage. Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Your Worship, and thanks for allowing me to call in this evening. So just pulling up my agenda here. Sorry about that, folks. Let's see. So welcome everybody, and I just wanted to let everyone know just kind of the order for this evening. Obviously, there'll be a brief presentation by the staff and then by our applicant. And it's not really an applicant tonight, it's more of our consultant. After the presentation, we'll allow anyone there in the chamber to speak. And we ask everyone to be respectful of time, and we give everyone 5 minutes. So we'll start obviously with the members of the public in the room, then we'll proceed to those that are joining on Teams, followed by council members looking for any clarification, etc. And just to show respect, and a big reminder too to everyone that's there this evening or listening, that as His Worship said, this is a draft official plan, And that's why we're here tonight. So I'll turn it back over to His Worship. And the only other thing I'll say is that if people have any other thoughts that they want to send on, they do have, I believe, until tomorrow at noon, or have we extended that? I'll allow His Worship to confirm how much more time folks have to submit feedback. So thank you all.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I will leave that to David or Michael or Donna to give that time frame for submitting any feedback. Donna, do you want to provide some timelines?
Thank you, Worship. So members of the public and interested persons can continue to submit their comments and feedback on the official plan, and we'll provide an official deadline after this meeting.
Yes, and the official plan is has been uploaded to our charlottetownhall.ca portal. And so please take an opportunity if you want to follow up after today. I just want to give a little bit of history. I recall being a resident and not a member of council, but there was the meeting back in 1999 where the official plan was presented to the public. It was the Kelly Stelling report, Ken Kelly and Hap Stelling. They started working on it in 1995. The city ran out of money in 1997. City did finish it in 1999, and it was passed by council in 1999, but only adopted by the province in 2005. So we're 20 years out, and I'm very excited, very pleased that we're coming to this point to make this presentation tonight. And this is, again, this document is not a constitutional document. It doesn't require 7 members of council or 50% of the residents to make amending changes to it. If we have to make changes as we go forward, changes will be made. So I'll turn it over to Donna, and then you can proceed from there, Donna. Thank you.
Your Worship, members of council, and members of the public, good evening. This request is to allow residents and other interested persons to comment on the new draft official plan for the city of Charlottetown before it is considered for adoption by council under Section 11 of the Planning Act of the Province of Prince Edward Island. As per our legislative requirements, notice of the public meeting was published in 2 issues of the Guardian newspaper on Saturday, March 1st, 2025, and Saturday, March 8th, 2025. Additionally, a public notice was posted on the city's website. As of Monday, March 10th, 2025 at 8 a.m., the Planning and Heritage Department received 2 written submissions. One expressed concern about the removal of low-density residential zones. The other emphasized the need to preserve the city's heritage characteristics. To facilitate public engagement and discussions on the content of the draft official plan, Nicholas and Stefan, our official plan consultants from O2 Planning and Design and Upland Planning and Design, will now provide an overview of the plan document.
Thank you, Mayor and Council.
Just introduce yourself, Nicholas.
Absolutely. My name is Nicholas Kuhl. As mentioned by Donna, I am with O2 Planning Design. I'm joined this evening with Stefan Kelbler from Upland Planning Design. We will be delivering a presentation overviewing the new draft official plan in equal parts here. So I will begin, hand it off to Stefan. He will hand it back over to me, and then we are here to answer any questions that may arise from the public hearing component of the meeting.
Thank you.
Tonight's presentation, we will be covering 3 distinct components. First is an overview of the official plan project process itself, so what we've been doing to get to this stage. We'll overview the official plan document and then provide an overview of the next steps following this public meeting. Next slide, please. Oh, I'm doing that, sorry. Or am I? I might not be. We can get 2 slides forward onto the slide titled Timeline.
Just some technical difficulties.
Perfect, thank you. As outlined, and I'll just call slides as we go now?
Yeah,
Perfect.
let's do that. Let's.
Okay. Sorry for that, everyone joining virtually and in person. We've solved the technical difficulties. We'll be moving forward now. The project itself has been underway since September of 2022, so about 2.5, 3 years we've been working on the official plan. That began with initial public engagement and official plan analysis, so a detailed review of that existing document from 1999 and outreach with the community to understand what their goals, priorities, and key interest areas as we begin to develop the new document were. And then over the subsequent years, there was an iterative process of public engagement, followed by document development, and then more public engagement that has helped us to synthesize and distill the information that we've been hearing from stakeholders, council, administration, and the public into the draft that is before you today. Next slide, please. In terms of how the document itself is created, there's really 3 distinct buckets of work that go into developing the plan that you've had the chance to review. The first is that public engagement component. So it's very important and has been a consistent theme throughout this project that we ensure we are understanding the opportunities, challenges, and ideas that the public are bringing forward and stakeholders are bringing forward to us to ensure that those are being reflected and incorporated into the official plan. We also begin by taking a very close look at the existing official plan to ensure that directions that remain relevant are maintained in the document. So there are elements of that 1999 plan that you'll still see in the draft today, because when things are working as planners, we like to leave them in our plans. And then lastly, there is analysis and research that goes into this. So the new official plan is predicated on the city's growth management strategy that was prepared in advance of this document. And it also reflects a lot of the open space, economic, and growth needs and technical studies that were done to help supplement and inform the development of the policy plan itself. Next slide, please. The title says this is the final plan, and it's a final draft plan. That's something that's been emphasized a couple times already this evening. The purpose of this public meeting is to ensure that we are getting feedback from the public and that we are able to make changes before it is considered for formal adoption. So there have been several rounds of review by administration, the province, and the public of this document over the past several years, but there are still opportunities to make changes. So we will be listening, we will be taking feedback this evening, and we will be seeing changes made to the document before it goes back to council. Next slide, please. At this point in time, I'll turn the mic over to Stefan to introduce the first several chapters of the official plan.
Thank you, Nick.
Stefan, just introduce yourself for the public record.
Yep, Stefan Keubler with Upland Planning and Design. Thank you. Next slide, please. And next one. Yeah, so our plan starts off with a introductory chapter that outlines the objective of the official plan, the process of how it was created, how the plan should be used by the reader, and how the plan works together with the zoning and development bylaw, which has been started to be developed by the city. And the plan is also embedded in a lot of other strategies and plans that have been developed in the last couple of years. Next slide. Next one, please. So we have an overarching statement in the plan that we call a vision. It's the North Star that guides the entire plan. And following the vision, there's a series of 6 goals that provide a different lens to guide the plan development. Next slide. I'm going to read the vision. As Nick said, this vision is a result of two-year-long process, talking to residents, stakeholders, developers, councillors, and the vision that is at the top of the plan reads, no matter where in the city residents live, all enjoy and benefit from diverse and attainable housing, economic opportunity, accessible, safe, and sustainable transportation choices, beautiful public spaces, healthy, natural, and conservation areas, and a unique historic culture and charm. Next slide. The 6 goals are to grow efficiently, to adapt to climate change, to advance social equity and inclusivity, to be fiscally sustainable, to ensure environmental sustainability, and to protect our natural and physical heritage assets as resources. Next slide. The land use strategy is a chapter that essentially provides residents with knowledge about what can happen in their neighborhoods, gives landowners and developers a certainty and a clear understanding of the opportunities available to them of their land, and gives council and city staff parameters around growth that will help in planning new infrastructure and services. Next slide. We have 10 future land use designations. Those outline the types of development and uses and forms of development appropriate in these specific areas. Those all reflect the complete communities approach. And what we mean by complete communities, that residents are able to access services, amenities, and public spaces in close proximity of their residences. There's also a focus on nodes and growth corridors throughout the city. Next slide. So we'll start with the downtown, which is actually divided into 3 different categories: the core, the periphery, and the waterfront. And the downtown designation essentially supports the downtown's role as a destination and neighborhood. It keeps respecting the built heritage and promotes development that complements the existing street and building patterns. The Eastern Gateway, some of you may remember a planning exercise from a few years ago, the Eastern Gateway Secondary Plan. This official plan rolls the Eastern Gateway Secondary Plan into the official plan and integrates design measures to protect shoreline and development from coastal flood risks. The corridors, the pink areas on the plan, provide mixed-use residential and commercial uses along key transportation routes. They increase transit service reliability by creating linear corridors of density. Nodes are essentially at key intersection of these corridors, and they create landmark built environments to frame major gateways and intersections, accommodate a broad mix of land uses, support the highest densities in the city. The neighborhood designation, the light yellow area, which is the majority of lands within Charlottetown, embrace the predominantly low-density residential character of these established residential neighborhoods, and also allow for gentle infill development and alternative forms of low-rise housing compatible with the neighborhoods. And what we call workspaces, essentially many of the business parks plus some additional areas establish reserve lands that are needed for commercial and light industrial operations. They maintain environments where many types of commercial and light industrial businesses can coexist in employment hubs. We have a number of significant institutions in Charlottetown, and this plan facilitates the development and operation of those institutional uses, and also attempts to minimize planning barriers and requirements for those institutions. The public Parks and public spaces designation encourages the protection, management, and enhancement of all areas of recreational use, provides connectivity throughout the city by strategically expanding the mobility network, filling gaps, and leveraging existing parks and public spaces. We also have abundance of natural areas, and those should be protected and integrated through integrated watershed management. We want to maintain the public accessibility to natural areas along watercourses and the shoreline. And last but not least, the gray areas, the urban expansion areas. Those are areas that are currently not developed within the city boundary. And what the plan attempts is to establish a process to transition these unserviced lands within the city boundaries to fiscally, socially, and environmentally viable communities in the future. Next slide, please. The plan also has a transportation section, and it is often said that the best land use plan is a good transportation plan. So transportation is a key component of this plan, and focuses on improving transportation for all residents. This includes providing an efficient and effective transportation network for people and goods, improving overall active transportation connectivity and safety, reducing greenhouse gas emissions by improving modal choice, and maximizing the use of existing transportation assets and services before new infrastructure is extended to undeveloped areas. And closely tied to road and transportation is the servicing infrastructure. It's a very expensive piece of the development equation, and it should be developed and used and maintained efficiently. So this section focuses on making the most efficient use of existing infrastructure to ensure sustainable growth, which includes providing safe and reliable water, wastewater, and stormwater servicing infrastructure, building resiliency into servicing networks, maximizing the use of existing services before new infrastructure is extended to undeveloped areas, and appropriately managing and maintaining existing service infrastructure assets.
Thank you, Stefan. Moving into the fourth chapter of the official plan, we get into the subject area policies. Next slide. So if the land use is the how we'll grow, the subject area policies are really the making it happen of the document. These are the things that are meant to supplement and support that growth. And the way that it's been divided is into 7 specific policy direction chapters. So those are urban form, arts and culture, heritage, recreation, housing, economic development, and sustainability and climate resilience. And because the official plan is a high-level guiding document, it's providing high-level direction. So it exists at what we say is a 10,000-foot level. It's not getting really into the nitty-gritty and into the weeds of all these specific subject area policies, but it is meant to set out guardrails and establish priorities for future action by the city related to all these different topics. So future bylaws, plans, studies, this area of the official plan points towards where the city should be going to make all of these different components of city building happen. Next slide, please. Oh, perfect. So the first one is that urban form, and this is really focused on celebrating the parts of Charlottetown that people really love and value right now in terms of experiencing the city, and making sure that future development and change in the city, no matter where it happens, helps to positively contribute to that. So some of the policy recommendations coming from this area are creating general urban design guidelines for the city, establishing a review function for the development of specific areas of the city, developing urban design criteria for conducting that design review, supporting visual environments of high aesthetic quality, ensuring that new development is harmonious with its surroundings, and incorporating accessibility into urban design. And I think those last couple are really important. There is this recognition that change does inherently warrant future development, but there is a need to make sure that where that change happens, it's done in a way that really reflects and amplifies, if you will, the things we already love about Charlottetown. The second chapter is the arts and culture component, and in this one, there's a commitment to ongoing implementation of existing identified arts and cultural priorities, so keep on keeping on with the things that are already going well, and expanding the footprint of Charlottetown's arts and cultural events and activities throughout all seasons of the year. Next slide. The third section is about heritage, and there are three key components to this subject area policy. First is expanding formal heritage identification and recognizing things that are perhaps not as celebrated right now as they could be. Continuing to support heritage conservation and the recognition of Charlottetown's heritage assets, especially around the downtown. And recognizing that balance is required between fostering success in tourism and economic growth while also accommodating growth itself. So there is a tension that exists between those two things, but there's also a way to ensure that they work together hand in hand as the city grows. The fourth area policy is recreation. For this, the official plan focuses on developing and enhancing sport and recreation facilities to meet wider programming needs for all ages and abilities, improving and connecting trails for safe and increased use by the public, developing facilities that foster and attract sports tourism to the city, promoting recreational activities, again, throughout the entire year, so taking that four seasons approach to recreation, and developing new parkland and enhancing existing parks to meet the recreation programming needs of residents. So this one's really important, especially from that growth perspective. As more and more residents move to Charlottetown, those new residents bring specific interests and expectations for what recreational facilities, what sports programming, all types of different things exist in the city. So making sure that the city is aware of those things, reflecting them, but also not forgetting the things that it's already doing well are all really important parts of ensuring recreation continues to be enjoyed by all in the foreseeable future. Next slide. Oh, good. The housing section, number 5, focuses on facilitating the development of housing options for the full housing spectrum. So ensuring that the city is setting up a framework that does allow different types and typologies of housing to be developed over the long term. And that's largely a reflection of what you saw in the land use strategy earlier. There's also an emphasis on enabling greater housing choice and options throughout the city and improving affordability by enabling new development in appropriate locations. So again, this is that nexus of ensuring that the transportation strategy, the infrastructure servicing strategy, and the land use strategy itself are all working hand in hand to make the most efficient, fiscally responsible, but also socially responsible development for housing over the future. Under economic development, the official plan looks at working collaboratively with all stakeholders in ECDEV to support development initiatives and opportunities both within the city and broader. It encourages continued growth of existing industries, including tourism, culture, and the knowledge economy and healthcare. So recognizing the things that Charlottetown is really good at and leaning in on those. And then also supporting the ongoing development of manufacturing and skilled labor. There's also general policy speaking to fostering a business-friendly environment. And lastly, supporting year-round tourism and managing its impacts on the community. So trying to stretch out that tourism season year-round, looking at that Winter Cities 4-season approach to development. And the final subject area policy in this chapter of the official plan is about sustainability and climate resilience. This covers a wide range of different environmental, sustainability, and climate change policies, but in short, they focus on building climate resilient communities and reducing overall greenhouse gas emissions, accounting for and protecting ecosystem services for climate resiliency and socioeconomic sustainability, preserving, enhancing, expanding, and connecting those natural areas and environmental functions together, maintaining that public accessibility to natural areas, especially along water bodies, making sure that we're providing for wildlife corridors and habitat areas throughout the city, and future-proofing Charlottetown from the financial, social, and environmental impacts of climate change. So things like the urban heat island effect, hurricane events, things like that, shore erosion, contemplating, considering how the city can take action to ameliorate those in the long term. Next slide, please. The 5th chapter of the official plan is secondary plans, and this focuses on 2 specific things. The first is on how secondary plans should be developed and employed in the future. So the urban expansion areas require secondary plans as part of the draft official plan that we've put forward, and this outlines the rule book for how those plans would be developed. And they also outline how the ongoing implementation of secondary plans, particularly Eastern Gateway and Eastern Royalty, should be committed to over the long term. Next slide. The final chapter of the official plan is the implementation component, and this looks at all those different elements that need to come together to ensure that the official plan is successfully applied in Charlottetown. And that looks like a lot of different things. So this looks like interdepartmental collaboration. So city administration working well with city administration, making sure everyone's pulling in the same direction at the same time. informed decision-making, so allowing and providing a bit of a yardstick, if you will, for council to be able to make informed decisions as they come to them, but also effective asset management, managing the transition between the existing zoning and development bylaw to the new one that's currently under development, and reflecting considerations around reconciliation, public engagement, regional collaboration, and then the actual monitoring of official plan implementation itself. Next slide. So in brief, the next steps moving forward, the approvals process has a couple more stops along the way before it gets to the province. There is planning board review and then council approval that would be coming up next, followed by getting sent up to the province to review and finally sign off on the document. As mentioned, the feedback we received today will help to inform revisions that could occur in the plan before it gets to planning board. And the next step on the implementation side of things is providing the land use strategy and the official plan with the really detailed rules, nuts and bolts of the zoning and development bylaw. And that project is currently underway. So at that point in time, I'll close the presentation, turn it back over to the mayor, and thank you very much for your time.
Stefan, Nicholas, thank you very much. Donna, David, Mike, do you want to follow up with any comments? Or do you want to go right to questions from the public? So the process we're at right now is the public hearing. We're here to get feedback on what was presented here this evening and all the information that is on our charlottetownhall.ca portal. Michael?
Thank you, Your Worship. I would maybe just add that, this plan has been in the works for coming on 3 years now. The staff, the consulting team, has been working very hard through the public engagement over those 3 years to listen. And really, the stage that we're at now, we're looking to confirm that what we heard over those past 3 years is correct. So we're looking for confirmation and any feedback on any tweaks that may be required at this point to move forward with formal adoption.
Councillor McCabe and Deputy Mayor Yankoff, all three of us have been involved with the Planning Board, Standing Committee for Planning, Development and Heritage since 2019. Correct me if I'm wrong, Deputy Mayor or Councillor McCabe, did we not start this process back in 2019 with funding coming from the Canadian Community Building Fund?
You're correct, Your Worship.
Yeah.
So we've
Exactly.
been working on this since 2019. We've only seen the realization since Stefan and Nicholas have come on board. So thank you for the presentation. So we're going to open it up to questions from the residents, and we do have some presentations. Or Andrea Battison, just one? Okay. So that mic is not the best mic, but we need to make sure it's working because everything has to be recorded. This is a public hearing, so it has to be documented for public record. Please just introduce yourself and don't have to tell your address. You're from Sherwood, Charlottetown, East Royalty, wherever. What's that? And as Jason Doucette said, don't touch the mic. Just go very, very close. And if you have to shout like I do, go ahead. Okay, so it's an open mic. Just introduce yourself, sir, please,
Yes,
and your address.
Good evening, folks. I'm allowed to hold the podium.
Yeah, oh yes.
Good.
Get down close to the mic there.
Is this close enough? Good evening, folks. My name is Matt Pelletier. I am the vice president. Are we sounding good? Want me closer? I'm the vice president and director of advocacy for Fusion Charlottetown. Fusion is a volunteer-run organization that supports youth and young adults in the capital region. We do this through sustainability events, cultural programming, and policy advocacy. Youth and young adults in the Charlottetown region, they're in sort of a precarious position right now. If you take a look at some numbers from Statistics Canada, you can see that average wages for young people in PEI and Charlottetown generally lag those of the rest of the country. We have less than a fifth of the city's residents living near public transit, and we have one of the lowest rental vacancy rates in the entire country. This has made it challenging for young people to move to, let alone stay in Charlottetown. And we've sort of seen the consequences of that over the past year in particular, where a good number of young people have actually left the island. In fact, more have left the island in the last year than have moved to Charlottetown. Among kids, say the 0 to 15s, that's a record year of outflow that happened last year. So what this is telling us is that families with young kids, they're leaving PEI, they're leaving Charlottetown, they're leaving particularly for Western Canada and the rest of Atlantic Canada because there's better housing opportunities, there's better economic opportunities, and this will have consequences for your property tax base, your economy, your labor shortages. So this is a trend that needs to be corrected, and it has to have all orders of government at the table to make that happen. And I think that's where the new official plan can come in and play a really big role. As written, the draft plan takes some really important steps relating to improving housing in residential areas, along major corridors, at major intersections, and importantly, allowing for higher order apartments near UPEI, Holland College, and the Queen Elizabeth Hospital. The plan is also more focused on affordable housing in terms of what it allows in terms of density bonusing, which is a really good step. And as we've seen from the presentation earlier tonight, there's a lot more seriousness in the later iterations of the draft when we're talking about climate, when we're talking about transportation. You can see it with the references to parking reform and ensuring that public transit can play a bigger role in fighting the congestion and traffic that's caused by cars. So it should come as no surprise that Fusion strongly supports this plan. In May of last year, Fusion's board expressed its support in a letter to council, but also stressed that more must be done, especially if we want to fully correct that out-migration trend that we're seeing. So as this plan eventually gets to the zoning and development bylaw stage, it's going to be really important that members of the planning board and council, that you raise the ambition for young people in the city. Do not lower it for a small handful of naysayers. And to that end, we actually have some recommendations for what these steps could look like, and this could be potentially more for the zoning and development bylaw stage. First, we believe that 4-story apartments should be permitted around all post-secondary campuses, not just the main UPEI Holland College ones, but let's talk about the Culinary Institute, allowing more density around there, and allowing around future post-secondary campuses. The city can also create an affordable housing acceleration pathway that allows for the faster approval of developments that are done by or in partnership with a community housing group. So when you're talking about a nonprofit, you're talking about the PEI Housing Corporation, cooperative, you name it. Housing is a human right, and I think a lot of you on this council believe that. And it's a right that shouldn't be held back by red tape, lengthy commenting periods, local gatekeeping. So it's important that we take steps, and we can take steps as a city and a community. Third, Fusion believes that the scope of the city's parking strategy, which is referenced in the official plan, should be widened to look at more than just adjusting around the edges of the requirements in the downtown area, to instead looking at eliminating the excessive off-street parking requirements we see citywide. We tend to overbuild a lot of our parking in North American cities. Charlottetown is no exception. And it's based on a lot of outdated theories about how many cars we need, how many people want to drive, can afford to drive, you name it. There's a whole lot, and it's made it harder to build affordable housing. It's made it harder to have adaptive reuse for heritage structures, and I know we love our heritage structures in the city, and it's made it harder to build that business case for public transit. You may hear tonight that some people might even tell you that if you vote for this plan, you've lost their vote. But what I can tell you is the current plan, 150 young adults left this city in the past year. 150 kids left this city in the past year. The current plan, people are voting against it with their feet. So we need a new plan in place, particularly if we want to think forward about this city. So with that, I yield the rest of my time, and I'm happy to take questions if you have any.
Thank you. Can we just leave it open for others to make their presentations? Thank you, Matt.
Good evening. My name is Carolyn Walsh. First off, I do feel that we need an extension on sending in information or our concerns. this has gone through quicker than a lot of people applying to put new decks on their house. March 1st, March 8th, you have March 10th to come up with. No, not everybody is online, not everybody gets the newspaper. A lot of word of mouth is going around on it now because people are just hearing about it. The main concern is we need an official plan. There's no two ways about it. It has to be done. The main concern a lot of people, which hasn't been addressed here yet tonight, with regards is when were the residents part of it, or seen all the information on the plan and what could be done. With regards to rezoning, that's the main thing that the neighbors and residents all over the city are speaking about. The other thing is, if you're going to do it in our neighborhood, you do it in the heritage neighborhoods too. Right now, everything's up for grabs. Where there's empty space, use it. You want to. We are very lucky we have green spaces, those 4 or 5 parks areas and that. That's fine. But there's a lot of other space that can be used. And this going into neighborhoods and then saying, oh yeah, you're going, and then you have to deal with the contractor that might have bought a house, and he's going to go in and decide, okay, we're going to make this into a 4-unit or 5-unit. How does that even address the situation of bringing more business or anything else? It brings more problems. Business in neighborhoods and everything, it's been proven, been more break and enters and everything. Not any of that was addressed tonight. It was just the basic plan. But what about the zoning and rezoning? It's my property. I pay the taxes. I bought it, my husband and I. I don't have need anybody to come in and tell us that somebody next door or otherwise is going to put a 4-unit apartment building in, or up to 5. Nothing was stated here about how high, how much space they can use, how many streets they can do it on, or how many places. I was sort of advised that, from what I was reading, that they could go in and buy 4 or 5 houses on the street and do it. Do the work and then sell the place. Then you're dealing with somebody else. So why is it moving into the neighborhoods, this rezoning and putting apartments in? And why is it not just start off with it into areas that aren't fully built yet? That you can go in and put a designated area in a new subdivision. Downtown and everything will be protected. Downtown will be protected in their areas, but the outskirts and subdivisions, there's a lot of derelict properties that could be cleaned up and put a few duplexes in there. There's little areas where you say the green spaces won't be touched in neighborhoods. We're very fortunate with our squares and our Queen Elizabeth Park, Victoria Parks, a lot of parks in Sherwood areas. And people are saying, okay, we're going to grow vegetable gardens there and everything. Well, they'll expand any amount over at the farm center for anyone that wants a garden. Why aren't you putting approvals or people applying to put duplexes in there and places for people, but within the current codes? As I said, I read a letter to the editor from the former mayor of Fredericton in the last little while over this same topic. They're going through it. He said he's never interfered in anything since he retired for the city, but did state for the current mayor and council vote no. It's just going to ruin neighborhoods. And nobody is not wanting people to have affordable housing. Everyone should have affordable housing. And that's the problem. Nobody's putting affordable housing up. They're saying, oh, yeah, we'll approve this apartment building, but there'll be 4 affordable apartments in it. Pardon? Okay. So, to me, that's a start. Get it done. Put affordable housing up. I mean, a few years back, they were going to put a lovely plan out at the end of Mount Ida Road, and you all in council that was there before with them. It was voted against because they thought it was too far for kids to get a bus. It had all affordable, proper housing done for salary and everything. So this business of moving into neighborhoods, changing things, and just saying, oh yeah, we're going to do it, that's not going to work.
Okay. Thank you, Carolyn.
That's my opinion as of date.
Carolyn, is it Charlottetown?
Pardon?
Carolyn Walsh?
Yes?
Yeah, Charlottetown.
Charlottetown?
Yeah, thank
Yep.
you.
So this is being rushed through a little too quick
Okay.
on that end of it. Nobody's going to come into somebody's neighborhood they paid for their house to say, oh yes, we're going to rezone it and we need housing. And people are leaving to go out west and everything, but if you took an Oak Tide survey maybe, you'd realize it's not a lot over housing. They're going to places that's more expensive to live. It's all over employment.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Again, Michael or David, I think we just have to make it clear what tonight is. It's the draft official plan. It's the City of Charlottetown's long-term vision for land use, growth, and development. Can you add any more to that, Michael?
Yeah, absolutely, Your Worship. Just to clarify, I know there's a lot of questions out in the community right now about, the 4 units as of right and more the zoning piece, but what we're dealing with tonight and this project in particular is the policy framework. The zoning bylaw, which deals with the development standards on properties, the actual zone districts, what types of uses are designated where, that will come. We will be doing public engagement through the spring and summer months, and I work to complete that project coming this fall. So just to be clear to everyone, all those zoning decisions will come, and there will be lots of opportunity to comment on that. But this document itself is just the policy piece.
Right. And Nicholas Stefan, I think there were about 500 residents that spoke to you about what was going on through the pop-ups that you had over the first year or so. And then we did reach out to the communities through, I think, 4 or 5 workshops. And you reached out to how many there?
To Your Worship, in-person engagement, we connected with a little over 600 residents over the course of the project. The full draft plan we engaged on in April 2023 and then again in April 2024.
Okay. Mic's open. Just again, don't touch the mic. Lean down into it. Yell if you have to. Just give us your name and where you're from.
Thank you. Greg McKee from York Lane. I think the details are the devil in the details type of thing. And with the zoning laws yet to come and the definition yet to come, still leaves a lot of questions. Because in the preamble in the plan, it talks about the neighborhood as one big area, the neighborhood of Charlottetown. And then also in the context, it also states that in the neighborhood, there will be new types of housing to be considered. But every resident will be aware of the type of housing to be implemented. So that leaves over the big question, what's to be implemented? But we can't answer that yet because the zoning bylaws haven't been developed. So that therein lies an issue. The other thing is, I saw active transportation and mentioned, but I'm not sure where it fell under the tenants. Did it fall under recreation? Or was it even, where is it considered in the plan? I didn't actually see that. What is it under those considerations that you formulate the plan? What area does it fall under? I didn't see one under transportation.
Okay. Donna or Nicholas? Anyways. Yeah. Greg, if
Maybe
you...
that's in the bylaw details too.
No, it is not. No, Greg, if you wish to keep going, we'll find the answer if you have other questions.
All right, well, I guess that's my concern. There's areas that I'm concerned with, and not to fall in the category of a naysayer, which I probably is not the best way to start a meeting, categorizing people as naysayers and supporters. But I really believe that the details are in the bylaws. It's a good framework. It's a good step forward, but it's just leaving so many questions out there, as you say, about fourplexes and different types of housing. Because the generic sentence in there basically says, open to new types of housing. And that's a pretty wide open and broad statement. So I guess that's where my concern lies. What is new and innovative housing in our neighborhood? Thank you.
Did you find that, Nicholas?
Through the chair, I'll address the active transportation piece first.
Greg, is it on the monitor?
I don't think it's on the monitor, but I can speak to, in the sections when Stefan was talking about the transportation strategy that follows the land use, underneath that, there's two distinct components. The first one talks about regional mobility generally, and includes a number of policies that focus on talking about active transportation at a regional level, ensuring that there is an emphasis on encouraging more people to engage in active transportation, and that's followed in the mobility network design subsection with actually developing design standards for active transportation infrastructure, so ensuring we're embedding active transportation in future road improvements, designing sidewalks, pathways, trail systems to make sure that we have those active transportation links connecting all of those things together, and generally ensuring that we are developing a mobility plan that connects active transportation and public transit together. So those are the core places in the plan where that lives. It's a valid question. It needs to be spoken to in order to make sure that it happens.
Thank you. Mic's open.
Evening, Your Worship, ladies and gentlemen. Jake Bartlett, Parkdale, naysayer number 2, I guess. Corridors, 3.2.3, figure 15. I don't know whether that's going to come up or not, is it? Corridors, Section A, no buildings with less than 5 units. B, building heights up to 6 stories. C, lower the height next to lower density neighborhoods. This would apply to most of Belvedere Avenue, St. Peter's Road, and Brackley Point Road if you did that. So I'm wondering, what is the height reduction of a proposed 6-story building when it's being built next to a 2-story building? Any answers? If not.
Just 1 second. Any answers, Michael? Do you want to, or just? The issue here is that as you stop, we're trying to keep within that 5 minutes. So if you have a few questions, we'll just take note of them and provide answers. Is that all right?
Fine with me, yeah.
Please.
Yeah. A 6-story building is 40 feet, which is a lot higher than a 2-story home. So in my opinion, that's not acceptable next to single-family residential buildings next to a corridor development. Section E says straight wall height no more than 3 meters above the roof of a neighboring building. I'm not too sure exactly what street wall height is, but this sounds, I don't know whether that's a confirmation of Section C or contradictory to Section C. Noticed in Section 3.2.4 where it talks about nodes, nodes are generally considered to be a higher density, yet nodes will allow 3-unit residential buildings, which is less than corridors. So seems to be a difference there of what is going to be the most dense. Section 3.2.5 is neighborhoods. Section F, permit greater densities on specific areas. There aren't any specific areas shown on the map. So a question in my mind is the whole neighborhood a specific area or isn't it? Because that seems to be the way that it's written. says, section H, support rezoning to enable 4 units per lot. No indication of what the maximum or minimum lot size will be. I mean, I don't know, I could maybe build 4 more houses behind mine. I can't say, I don't know. Also says, section I, support variances to allow narrower lots. Why would you build in variances instead of making it a bylaw? It seems to me that doesn't make sense to have a bylaw and then allow variances to it. Then another section, section J, support rezoning up to 16 units. So all of a sudden now we've gone from 4 to 16. Not too sure where the boundary line is there. And minimize long stretches of single-use zoning. That's kind of contradictory to the whole corridor design, because there you're going to have long stretches of the same use. So what is the difference between a neighborhood as shown in Figure 17 and a neighborhood zone? Are they the same, or will there be areas in the neighborhoods that do not allow 4-unit development? The suggestion is to allow 4 units on any lot, but maintain the character of the neighborhood. The character of a single-family neighborhood will not be maintained by adding 3 more dwelling units on each lot. 3 times as many dwelling units is not gentle infilling. Is there anything that will prevent a developer from demolishing an existing home and putting up 4 units next door? This gives developers a wide open invitation to buy and develop anywhere they see a chance to make a profit. This results in the lowest value lots being developed ahead of others. This puts, this displaces the lower income people rather than higher income people. So you're going to really attack the lower people. Up to 5 minutes, are we? Okay. Section P, establish a medium density residential zone, allowing 3-story buildings in greater density. That could be 40 dwelling units per acre. That's my reading of it. So I'm wondering where those medium density residential zones will be put in the existing neighborhoods. Notice there's statistics here a little while ago. Canada home ownership in 2021 was 66.5%, down by 2.5% since 2011. PEI had the largest decrease. In 2021, PEI home ownership was 68.8%, down by 4.6% since 2011. So if we continue to go to higher density, you're going to get lower home ownership. PEI is also trending down in home ownership, allowing the higher density will increase that. Anyway, I'll leave it.
Okay. So, Mike or Stefan, Nicholas, Donna, did you want to reference some of those points? That's in the document, correct? Under
Yeah, sure.
some of the.
And I apologize, Jake. I didn't keep track of all the questions, so I'll try to answer the ones that I took note of, and then my colleagues can help out. Your question about the corridor buildings and the transition to lower density neighborhoods, you're quite right pointing out that not all lots might actually be able to accommodate 6-story buildings. What the zoning and development bylaw will do is set these lot parameters in terms of minimum rear yards between a corridor building and the established neighborhood, and there might very well be a number of lots where there is no space for multi-unit buildings, but those transitions would either be respected through rear yard setbacks or lower parts of the building, side yard step backs, and minimum side yard requirements as well. Yeah, and I think that goes for a number of your questions. The zoning and development bylaw will essentially set those parameters. What are the minimum lot sizes? Where do these 4-unit buildings actually fit? And that goes for the gentle density buildings, the higher and medium density buildings as well.
Nicholas?
If I may keep answering some of the questions, the one area you pointed out that said 3, that is a mistake. It should be 4, so we appreciate you catching that. Well, your check's in the mail. There were questions about the variances, and the reason that you're seeing language talking about variances when a new zoning and development bylaw is under development is that in that interim, in that transition between the official plan being adopted and the new zoning and development bylaw being adopted, there will be a gap where this is providing that forward-looking advice or guidance, if you will, to how planning staff should interpret development applications. So that's why it seems inconsistent, because it's capturing really a brief moment in time once the official plan is adopted, where that will not be captured in the current zoning and development bylaw. And that policy kind of function highlights more broadly something that I think we'll be hearing about a lot tonight, is that there isn't the amount of detail that people necessarily would like to be seeing in this official plan, but that is by design. You can say it's a feature, not a bug. This document exists to provide, like I mentioned earlier, guardrails or forward-looking guidance to the zoning and development bylaw team as they build out the very specific minutiae, the nuts and the bolts, the exact meters and centimeters of setbacks for all of the developments. Sometimes the official plan is fairly specific. You mentioned there are those policies in there about making sure that something is no more than 3 meters taller than a neighboring building. And that's because those are things that we believe are important enough at the official plan level that we need to enshrine them. So we're giving a nod to the fact that we do believe strongly that there needs to be very careful consideration for how existing residential developments are treated and impacted by future development. So we're saying to the zoning and development bylaw team as they prepare that document, and to future interpreters of that, these are things that are really important. And you'll see throughout some of the other policies as well, it's not as specific as you might like to see, because the specifics need to be borne out in the zoning and development bylaw. But when we have policies that talk about ensuring infill and intensification are contextually sensitive, we're saying you need to look at the stuff around you that's already there and make sure that you are reflecting that context and not doing something egregiously bad. In the same sense, we have policies that talk about ensuring that there are rules in the zoning and development bylaw for what we call architectural transition and buffering. And those, again, are nods to the zoning and development bylaw team, where we're saying you need to make sure that your zones that you create are thinking about what those transitions look like, are thinking about how they treat the rear yards, are thinking about where height belongs and where height also doesn't belong. And those are all things that we are including and that are in the document right now. One thing I would encourage speakers as they come forward, if they are concerned about these things, our job with the official plan is to put those guardrails in place. So if you have suggestions for the guardrails that you would like us to give to the zoning and development bylaw team, that would be the most effective way to ensure that those concerns are heard and implemented.
Great way to pass it on, Nicholas, Stefan, because I think the zoning development bylaw will be headed up by Fathom Studios, correct? So they will be taking what you have put together. And again, the official plan is a key land use planning document that guides and shapes development by outlining policies and objectives for a municipality's growth and land use. And we've tied it to the 4 pillars of Charlottetown's strategic plan, and that is guiding sustainable growth, enhancing community well-being, strengthening economic resilience, and fostering effective governance. Mic's open. Oh, go ahead, sir.
My name is Ken Heckbert. I live in Orchard Hill Park. I have a simple one for the mayor and council. I'm just looking for confirmation that despite what it shows in the draft official plan, the city is not actually intending to take away McPherson Park from the residents of Orchard Hill Park.
No, that's not part of the official plan.
It certainly is.
Okay, can you just address that, Donna? Mr. Heckbert, is that one question, or do you have more questions?
That's it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Worship. So the map that is currently in the draft official plan, there's a mistake where the park is actually shaded in yellow, and that indicates that it is in the neighborhood designation, but that will be corrected. It's actually going to remain a park.
And when will that be corrected?
It will be corrected before the draft official plan goes to planning board and council for adoption.
I'll be looking for it.
Yeah, just keep an eye on it. Councillor Twill, no, we'll come to questions for the councillor. No, I know, no, just, there are lots of people here, and this is for the public input. So I think that council is looking at that. Okay, could I just have the next speaker?
Hi, Jennifer Perry, Charlottetown.
Thanks.
And I just would like the zoning and development bylaw team to give folks notice for public engagement, because in the spirit of guidelines, guardrails, the framework, specifically at page 9, causes concern to me and I think other people, specifically with respect to due process and procedural fairness, because the key here, you know, as many people have said, the devil's in the detail. And specifically at page 9, the zoning and development bylaw shall be the principal instrument for implementing the vision and objectives of the plan. And it outlines zones, permitted uses, and then it speaks to potential amendments. So it causes some concern, for instance, if a property is currently, there's checks and balances right now on zoning requests, and I think many will remember that there recently was an R2 low-density request to turn the property into an R3T to put in a 5-unit stacked townhouse. So the way this reads to me is that potentially the zoning and development bylaw team may allow that without consultation. So that's a concern. So I guess I'll ask Mike specifically to give as much notice as possible, because the first speaker mentioned that this appears, how do I put this? Charlottetown is famous, or PEI is famous for putting stuff in the paper after it's happened. So literally there was a tiny little ad in the paper on Saturday buried, and one person told 2 friends and they told 2 friends, and then today we heard you on the radio. But if people really understood this, there might be a lot more people here. So I just think public engagement consultation is a thing. So specifically with respect to the zoning and development bylaws, if the team could give folks as much notice as possible so that we can give some input. It's more of an ask.
Yeah.
Okay.
Michael, did you want to address that? And as for the Guardian, the only problem with the Guardian is that it's usually a day late with the news. Yeah.
Certainly appreciate the question. That is something that we're very focused on moving forward with the zoning and development bylaw project. There will be fulsome engagement again through the spring and summer months. There will be multiple rounds of engagement, and the team is working very closely with the city's communication department to make sure that we explore all avenues to get the message out there.
Okay, mic's open. Just give us your name, where you're living.
Willie Doyle's my name, and I live at 5 Morrow Drive. And I'm just going to go back to the fall when 33 Morrow Drive got brought up, where they wanted to change that into a 5-unit building instead of just a single dwelling home. And with the bylaw, you're saying that what I read in the paper and what I understood is that there's not going to need to inform us people that you're going to put that person, that contractor wants to go in and put a building up there. He's going to just talk to you guys and you're going to say, okay, without getting a hold of us, neighbors and stuff like that. And then we ought to have to worry about again is the infrastructure that goes with that building. So right now 33 was sold, and just recently 31's been sold. So down the road, do they turn around and they put a 4-unit or a 5-unit on 33, and then they turn around and bought that next unit to it, and they're going to put another 5-unit, and you're putting 8, 10 more people with septic and sewer and cars and all the rest of it into the neighborhood where it can't handle it. And right now, we have trouble with that kind of infrastructure with the storm drains and the whole bit. So is that going to be addressed when you guys turn around and try to put the extra units into these properties and neighborhoods? That's all I got to say.
Okay. Michael, Donna, David, Nicholas, Stefan, who wants to?
I can jump in again. Again, these are all questions that the zoning and development bylaw will provide the parameters for that new development to occur. The zoning and development bylaw also sets out the process in which staff and council handle these development applications. So as we work through that public engagement process with the zoning and development bylaw, all those items will be up for comment.
And Willie, what was stated by Jennifer, there will be lots of PR, public relations, lots of information going out. And I'm sure your council will keep you informed too. He does a pretty good job. Okay, mic's open.
Hi, my name is Pooja Kumar. I live downtown in Charlottetown. I'm a registered professional planner. So hi to Nick and Stefan and Mike and Janice in the back. I'm delighted that you're actually considering a draft plan because I did a thesis in island studies on wildlife and how it's been regarded in PEI over the last 200 years. And I looked at the 99 plan in great detail for that. So it's nice to have a comparison. And I don't want to touch on anything anyone's spoken about, but it's almost a couple of housekeeping things that I would have found a little difficult to write down. I wouldn't have known where to start, and I would like other people in the room to sort of know them apart from the planners as well. So, you know, when Nick or Stefan, I think it was Nick, I couldn't hear properly, spoke about the official plan being guardrails. Your guardrails can be clearer or vaguer, and there are municipalities across the country, many of whom have been reviewed in the background work to this plan, which have much more specific guardrails. So they do say, you know, in all the sections evenly, what will be done through the zoning bylaw, even if it doesn't say what the zoning bylaw will do. And so I'll use an example from your draft plan about the urban form or the economic development pieces, where there are details saying we'll come up with guidelines, we'll do this, we'll do that. And in the later sections, I think it's 4.7, about the sustainability and the climate resilience, it's a vaguer sort of follow through to the level of specificity. And so I would really like to encourage the municipality through this process of going from draft to final to make sure you have the same level of follow through in all your sections, so that all the pieces are, you know, detailed enough to say this is what we're going to have as our aspirational goal or objective, and then these are our policies around it. And so when I was going through the sections, I found some vagueness, which is probably just a housekeeping cleanup to do with, you know, the urban form, the arts and culture, the housing and the economic development have very clearly stated what the objectives are and what the policies are. But the later sections just have bullet points under many of the things. So I assume those are policies. You know, there's in the sustainability and climate resilience, there's objectives, but everything else doesn't say what it is. And it's also vague enough to be the level of the policy. So that's where the details in the zoning bylaw miss out on the follow through when there isn't that connection. And there's no harm having, you know, goals, objectives, policies, and actions in your official plan. And it just provides clarity. So this may not be the stage to do it, but when you, if you were doing a official plan and zoning bylaw, as you're doing at different times, you would ideally have a bit where when you did your zoning bylaw draft, you'd have draft amendments to create those connections back between what you have in this plan and what comes through in your zoning bylaw. So I would encourage that. And my only other comment is to comb through the official plan and see where you need to address what happens through subdivision. So, for instance, if you say we'll protect wildlife or we'll conserve, the environment to stop flooding, and you say we'll do this through development, it's not just development. It's every time parcels of land are consolidated or broken up. And so you have a lot of new development, which, has happened on wetlands, which may not be on provincial mapping, but they do exist. And so there is common knowledge about what is an environmentally sensitive area, even if it's not designated. So just some attention to those details is helpful when you're cleaning up this draft stage. Thank you.
Are you looking for a job? Give her a call, Sue. Did you want to address anything, Michael? Donna?
No, I appreciate the comments, and I know the team's taking notes.
Okay. Next, please.
I'm short enough for this mic, I think. My name is Barbara Dilla. I live in Charlottetown. Nice to be here tonight. So my notes are a little bit helter-skelter, but there's a mad order to them. So I've been participating in these consultations and activities since the very beginning, as some of you may be aware. And I have generally commented at every level of the process. And I like the idea of the vision, a community for all, that no matter where in the city that said residents reside, et cetera, public transportation is tightly related to all the goals. It's really connected to every goal. And as Pooja was just saying, and that's why I decided to follow her in my comments, is that as you go through all of these goals and objectives, is where is that red thread of public transportation? So in section 3.3, transportation, page 76, I had proposed, probably each time, because I put a note here, try to get this in again, with reference to fast, frequent, and convenient transit. Because public transportation is one thing, but if it's fast, frequent, and convenient, that makes all the difference. Safe cycling and walking is critical. Efficient goods movement is also qualifies. How do you want the movement to be? On that page 76, I believe, if my notes follow correctly, it talks about the transportation networks connects people throughout the city, et cetera, et cetera. The continued growth of this city will require the balanced enhancement and expansion of all modes of transportation. It also says within residential communities and the 500 lot area, enhancing and expanding active modes for walking and cycling should be the priority. I would like to see, and I've been trying to relay this throughout all the last couple of years, the areas of transportation as it connects to land use, because a good land use plan is a good transportation plan, is I would really like to see a more robust approach and insertion of public transportation, because it is, in this plan, it is segregated from active transportation, as it just said, as I just read, to have better active modes for walking and cycling. But walking and cycling is connected to transit, because not everybody can walk, not everyone can cycle. People who walk will use transit, people who cycle will use transit, and vice versa. Also, there are these policies, for instance, in the 3.2.1 objectives for downtown, prioritize walking and cycling as the main modes of personal transportation. But what about public transit? How are people, whether they're residents, travelers, tourists, workers, supposed to get to downtown or away from downtown? The overall downtown policies prioritize active transportation along streets. Again, as it says in the regional mobility part, transportation networks do not exist in isolation. If you have active transportation, you need to have that public transportation, the four wheels. So could public consideration be given to incorporating public transit in these policies? So for instance, spreading bus lines and bus stops throughout downtown for more convenient access to transit for residents, office workers, and visitors alike. Prioritizing active transportation and improving pedestrian comfort is definitely desirable. Connecting them to public transit gives everyone then more choices on a mode of travel or modes of travel, especially since pedestrians are bus users. Then 41, page 41, downtown core policies. If there's a policy to restrict the development of automobile-oriented land uses, could there be a complementary policy or an adjacent policy to encourage public and active transportation-oriented land uses? So my time's coming up, so I do have more notes, but I will leave those then for my written input by the deadline that is set.
Barbara, merci beaucoup. Thank you very much. I believe Stefan, Nicholas, you can follow up with them.
Oh, I will. I have more.
Yeah.
But
And
5
again,
minutes can
that
go by
addresses
fast,
that active
especially-
transportation pathways, multi-use pathways, cycling, transit, all very important.
But public transit is the key to everything else. It's at the center of it all. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That's good. Mic's open.
My name is Brian Gillis, and I'm a resident of Charlottetown. And I think as I sit here and listen and think about the process of endorsing this official plan, I have a very deep pit in my stomach that I don't feel that this is the correct plan for Charlottetown. And that does not lessen the hard work that has been done by the engaged consultants and by everybody who has tried to shape a plan. But I'm hearing a lot tonight about understanding the implications of the plan as it gets down to an individual homeowner or a property owner. And two big items that I see in the plan that I have concern for are the strong emphasis on corridors, and what I'm still trying to grapple with is a concept of a node as an urban design feature. I'm an architect by profession, and I've worked in development and building design and land use, and I do have a sense of the language, but I find these very foreign. And I've also heard tonight that one of the measurements that people are asking for is how does the specific zoning relate to this conceptual overarching plan? That's how it's going to be judged. And I think maybe it has been a mistake to separate the two elements of developing an overarching plan and then leaving it to even a different consulting group now trying to come in and mesh together the fine-grained execution of those broad sweeping mandates. So I mentioned the corridors, and I'll be specific to two, Belvedere Avenue and St. Peter's Road. Both of those corridors are under significant strain with transportation, as we've allowed the population to sprawl over the last 50 years. The demands for using those what were neighborhood collectors to now become arterials is flawed. To now go back and overlay on that high-density land use adjacent to it. The other part to that is if you go out and examine the lot sizes that are on those corridors, they're residential lots for the most part. They have less than 100 feet in depth. And if you're trying to do attainable housing, if that's one of the objectives in the overarching plan principles, it's not going to produce the results you're looking for. I fail to see how the economics of demolishing properties and consolidating lots and impacting the fragile ecology of the residential neighborhoods that are adjacent to them. So I really can't endorse this plan. I think that academic conceptualization of a vision does not match up to the fine-grained character and relationships of our communities. And I think part of the reason for getting into this position today is that the city, and not you as councillors today, although some of you may have been here for a longer term, have not addressed the issue of official plan review on a timely basis. I think the mayor gave a very good illustration of the length of time that the HAP-Stelling plan took to get from a conceptual level into implementation, but there were reasons for that. There were 7 communities that were being integrated into the city of Charlottetown. And a major flaw that took place was that for political reasons, we did not deal with the greater Charlottetown area, and we've allowed, not we, collectively the whole province has allowed Stratford and Cornwall to become rival communities. We share a lot of infrastructure collectively, but we have separate planning framework and we have separate political frameworks. And one of the recommendations that was supposed to take place when we were considering amalgamation is that would be a greater Charlottetown area. So any decision that you make in Charlottetown, you're also trying to dampen activities that are taking place outside of Charlottetown. There's not enough industrial land in the city. And where is it going to grow? It's going to grow in Cornwall. So your needs are to either overlay the site-specific zoning concurrent with the planning process for a master plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gillis. Any commentary? Noted. Okay. Mic's open. Carolyn, no, it's Carolyn. It's one. Yeah, thank you.
Good evening, Your Worship, councillors, staff. My name is Ryan Pino. I'm a resident of Mount Edward Road, proud resident of Ward 4. And you can maybe note me as yay-sayer number 1. I think the city has done a phenomenal job on this draft official plan. This is probably my 4th time at a public meeting on this official plan so far. I think there's been 4, plus online surveys, participation, interactive maps. It's been a really in-depth process, and I think it's been a great way for residents to be able to have their say. But maybe more importantly than the yay-sayer, I'm a YIMBY. So yes, in my backyard, and I feel that this plan achieves that in terms of backfilling and adding some density into the city that is really needed, because more concerning to me than having, a 4-unit in my backyard is the continued erosion of our landscape and green spaces, not only within Charlottetown, but in the greater provincial area. Before I purchased a single-family home on Mount Edward Road, I lived in an apartment building it was an 8-unit on Doncaster, and I don't think that I or any of the other residents of that apartment were any lesser people than the people that live in single-family homes. And I don't think that I was a lesser person then Maybe I'm a lesser person now because I have less hair on my head, but I think it's a good thing to have that infill and that density, and I really appreciate the work you've done. So that's a lot of commentary, but really I do have one question, and I think I probably know the answer, but I think it's probably directed towards Michael. You talked about the zoning and development bylaw, and I think that's the key to all of this, and that's going to go towards consultation in maybe the spring and summer. But do you have a target for when that's probably going to come back in terms of a draft to people, but B, more importantly, when that bylaw is going to get in place? Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan.
Thanks for the question. Yeah, just to clarify, the deadline for us to complete the zoning and development bylaw, or a target end date, would be the fall of 2025. So this coming fall.
It's open mic. Do you want to bring in Andrea? Andrea Battison, are you there?
I think so. Can you hear me?
Oh, we can hear you loud and clear. You know
Okay.
you're on the clock.
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, Andrea Battison, Charlottetown. Thank you for this opportunity. Appreciate the work. I would like to limit my comments to questions and concerns. I have 8 points that I hope might have answers at the end. Regarding the document, the diagram for the CDA near Holland College is inconsistent. Sometimes it includes parts of the 500 lot area, sometimes it does not. Which one is correct? Institutional land use, you're missing the government garage and the Holland College campus. Park zone, you're missing Joe Gis Park, you're missing Queen Square is now marked as downtown core institutional. Is that intentional? If so, why? For natural areas, the stream in Joe Gis Park is part of a natural catch basin system and would have thought it would be included. The Eastern Gateway Master Plan called for remediation and expansion of this stream. Unfortunately, right now it's all mostly under asphalt. Could we please include a policy to clean up, not cover up, our contaminated sites and brownfields? Regarding the secondary plans, these include objectives and policies, like for the Eastern Gateway and East Royalty plans. I would suggest that the 500 lot development standard and design guideline report, the 500 lot study, also be included here, as it's heavily referenced in the draft plan, yet its objectives and policies are not in the plan. Currently, if there's a conflict between the official plan and the zoning and development bylaw, the official plan prevails. My question, if the 500 lot studies, objectives, and policies aren't part of the official plan, are they there for a legal perspective if there's ever a challenge? Considering that the draft plan consolidates the downtown core and downtown Main Street and downtown Main mixed-use neighborhood and downtown neighborhoods into new zones, and has removed the old map, Schedule B1, and says that these 4 zones need to be established. My question, is it the intention of the draft plan to set the stage to change the current boundaries of these 4 zones in the upcoming zoning and development bylaw amendments? Regarding heritage preservation area, we need to have one recognized. Our current official plan recognizes the Great George Heritage Area, which was designated in 1979, expanded to include the 500 lots in 2013, but no longer recognized by council since 2018 when the heritage preservation bylaw came in. The draft plan doesn't recognize the 500 lot as a heritage preservation area, yet policy statements for downtown core and periphery say that development is and should be compliant with the 500 lot study that requires expansion of the heritage area. There's conflict there. I'd urge council to reaffirm the existence of the expanded Great George Heritage Area in this plan, and so bring it under the protection of the Heritage Preservation Bylaw. This area is vital to the city and the nation's history and local tourism. Regarding the waterfront, most of the downtown waterfront zone is in a floodplain. There are multiple references in the document to not develop in the floodplain unless a building requires water access. This makes perfect sense. I support it. Yet the document also indicates to build per the 500 lot study, which shows height stepping down to the water, but the current zoning bylaw is following the 2012 waterfront master plan, which has heights up to 10 stories going to the water. That's not even in this draft plan. My question, what is the policy for developing in the waterfront floodplain? Yes or no, step up or step down? It's been 14 years, maybe we need a new waterfront master plan secondary study. The port zone is currently listed under workscape section, but perhaps it needs its own category. This area is intensely integrated with a pedestrian and public space and is near a residential area. This is inconsistent with the workscape areas. From an environment perspective, again, we should be cleaning up and not covering up our contaminated lands. From the public engagement section, I would strongly urge the use of much stronger language that raises the minimum efforts required by council for public engagement. And there, 5 minutes. If anyone's got some time to answer any of those points, I tried to be as succinct as possible. I can provide more details if required. Thank you.
Andrea, as always, well presented, and I'm going to ask Nicholas, Stefan, can you respond to her questions? And if you did forget one, I'm sure she has it written down to remind you. But Andrea, thank you very much. Well done. Who wants to go first?
I'll pull this over so we can both speak. Thanks as well. I'll echo through the mayor the comment of thanks for the commentary back to us. Throughout the process, we have appreciated the insight and feedback we've received from you, and it has been informative in a lot of what you will already see in the document and some changes forthcoming based on what we heard today. In terms of some of the mapping errors that were noted, inconsistencies with the typologies around Holland College, those are things that we'll look into. If I had to guess, some of that is coming from the Eastern Gateway extending a little bit into the 500 lot area, but we'll make sure we're reconciling that. The parks flagged are, as mentioned earlier tonight, something that we've identified as well that need to be fixed. It's being actioned. We just haven't had the time to be able to update it in time for this draft, but it will, as Donna mentioned, be changed before it gets to the planning board in the future. So those are things that will be getting done before the plan moves any further in the process. In terms of working with the 500 lot area design guidelines and plan as a secondary plan, that's something we would take internal for discussion. I know there's conflicting policies and regulations and guidelines, quite frankly, as you've mentioned, between both the downtown waterfront, that document, and several other things, and we tried our best to reconcile them as much as possible through this process, but ensuring that we're giving very clear and very explicit direction for future interpretation. In particular, the conflict you flagged is an important one that we will need to take away and make sure that we're resolving. I will pivot to Stefan if you have anything to add. No, you're good. Donna, anything on your end? No. Please email those comments to us if you haven't already submitted them, though, Andrea.
Right. Was there an answer to why Queen Square is now institutional? It's repeated.
Well, that's one that we're fixing. To make back to parks, to be clear.
Could anyone from council comment on the need for a heritage preservation area to be restored?
Andrea, what we're doing tonight is, this is a public hearing. It will go back to Michael, correct me, Donna, planning board for more discussion. So we're just here to listen. We will have questions at the end from councilors, but right now we're trying to get public input.
Okay, thanks very much. Appreciate the time.
Andrea, I appreciate the work you did in making your presentation. Thank you very much. So the mic is still open. If not, I will ask some councilors. There's Councilor McCabe online, the deputy's online, and so is Councilor Duran. Okay. So again, if you're addressing any questions, we do have our staff. I think we should try to avoid bringing people up from the gallery because the professionals are here to provide answers or clarification. Councillor Ramsey.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you, everybody, for showing up and for all the work you did so far. I just want clarification because of the emails and phone calls I've been receiving. So everybody's going to have an input on the bylaws, Michael, I believe, and what people are more worried about is that when they live in a certain neighborhood, someone comes by the house beside them, and then they're going to jack up the apartment. So they're all going to be able to have their input with that, are they not?
That's correct, Councillor. Like I said before, the next step is working through the zoning and development bylaw, which sets out those development parameters and the process itself for development approval. So it's really important that we get feedback from the public through the public engagement process in the spring and summer months so that we can set that expectation that the neighborhoods and the community overall expect.
Okay, thank you very much, Your Worship.
Councillor Ramsey. Thank you very much. Councillor Tweel.
Thank you. I want to thank everyone for coming here tonight. I want to thank the consultants. Just listening to some of the comments, particularly Mrs. Walsh, when she talked about more information. I think it struck a chord with me. It's certainly not a criticism of our consultants or planning board or the city of Charlottetown. But, we talk about public engagement, notification, and the process. I think we collectively have to do a better job when it comes to getting the information out to the community. I don't think we've done a good enough job, folks. I'm not trying to be critical, but we simply haven't done a good enough job. And unfortunately, there's a lot of misconceptions, misunderstanding about what's in the plan, what stands for the plan. Even Mr. Hepburn, when he talked about, the park, is the park going to be eliminated? So I think we need to take a step back. Hopefully the consultants will take all this information. I would like for another opportunity for the community to be able to be consulted on the official plan, to give the community that opportunity, much more promotions, much more advertisement, maybe even a bigger venue. I can recall years ago when we had these consultation processes, a lot of them took place at Charlottetown Hotel and out into the community. So I think if we do a better job getting that information out, again, I'm not trying to be critical, but nonetheless, you listen to what was said here tonight, we need to do a better job getting that information out in the official plan. Now, with respect to the official plan, what I would like to see is a comparative analysis on what you're proposing in this official plan compared to the existing official plan. I'd like that comparative analysis so that we can have an understanding as to what you're proposing in the contrast with what the status quo is saying, where we're making inroads, where we're breaking new ground, and some of the different objectives that you laid out in the official plan. I appreciate all the work that you've done thus far. I did recall in one of the meetings where you folks were online, I talked about revitalization, which is extremely important. I haven't heard anything with respect to revitalization in our official plan, which to my mind is a cornerstone when it comes to land use development. So revitalization, recreational green space, whether it's passive or active, indispensable to a healthy, livable city. That should never, ever be compromised, regardless of what the objectives are. I do want to thank the consultants, but Mr. Mayor, I think we need to have another meeting on the official plan, and we need to do major advertisement. It's not, again, I want to reiterate, I'm not trying to be critical, but let's get the information out to our community because we need more people here. We need a lot more people here participating in this, a very, very important process. Thank you.
Councillor Twill, I know your corporate history is quite formidable here, and I know back in 1999, you were on council, but I think as Mr. Gillis said, that plan that came together, the official plan, and Brian, I just got a text from HAP Stelling. HAP said that they only worked on the official plan back in 1999. The city took over 97 to finish off the zoning development bylaw. So they were on two separate pathways. But Councillor Twill, that decision on going to a second meeting, I think that's a decision council will have to make. So there'll have to be a recommendation. But I agree, more input is much required. But again, that 1999 meeting, or the prior to the 1999 decision, 7 communities were coming together. So it brought a lot of attention. And I know that the next venue was recommended by Councillor Beck that we should go to a larger venue. That will be in the option. So thank you very much. Now, I notice a gentleman's here that wants to speak. Council, I know we've come back to council. Is it all right for another speaker? Go ahead there, sir. Just give us your name and your address.
I'm going to do it anyway.
No. Anyways,
It works.
It's still working? Okay, go ahead.
My hands are special. Daniel Mullen, 543 St. Peter's Road in Charlottetown. There's some valid points that were brought up. I have to admit I missed a number of them. I spent some time in the peanut gallery for the overflow. When I arrived here, someone made the observation, of course, that here we have a small venue and not big enough for the number of people that would probably want to be here, if they even knew what was going on. I want to remind people that when COVID was on, there was the discussion of the expansion of Spencer Drive out to Mount Edward Road. And city wisely rented the main stage at Confederation Center to give people spacing. And there was a lot of people there. And the issues that were there at that time remain. Even when you move people from University Avenue and Capitol Drive over to Mount Edward Road, where are they going to go? Mount Edward Road is no wider than it was 5 years ago. St. Peter's Road is no wider than it was 5 years ago. And yet these plans are showing in the area between the Charlottetown Mall and the bypass, 5,000 new units. Where's the school going to be for those students? Where's the capacity going to be? You can say, oh, we're going to add another bus. We don't even have a proper bus route system that the buses pull off from the side of the street to not impede traffic on University Avenue. In the busy times in University Avenue, people are sitting behind a bus while the good people that are taking the bus are getting on, and it backs up traffic a block. On St. Peter's Road, traffic is backed up some days 1.5 kilometers.
Oh.
And yet we're going to put potentially a couple thousand more people out in East Royalty. We have to have a comprehensive plan that deconflicts the issues, not just with issues like, recently here we've just done a project to realign Water Street, and the city has buried toxic materials in berms around that new street. Why are we storing material that's going to be one day hit by water and wash out and contaminate the place? Why are we building in flood zones? Why are we not making a plan to flood-proof the city? I lived for a number of years in a place called Hamburg, where they planned everything for a once-in-a-century storm. 5 years later, that once-in-a-century storm hit, and then 5 years later, it hit again. So we have to have great planning, not just good planning. We have to have great planning. We have to have an integrated transport plan. And realistically, that means if there's 13,000 cars driving in from the countryside in on St. Peter's Road, and we're adding 3,000 or 4,000 more people there, we've got to figure out a way to get them in. If that means new streets and new ways, we've got to do it. We have a problem too. We have people rushing out Mount Edward Road to get out to Sherwood Road to get out onto the road there. We have the province right now planning a massive intersection at the bypass and Mulpeck Road, which will be highly disruptive, which may not work out all that well. And we need to find another way to get people in and out of the city. That might mean, for instance, putting a parkway alongside the existing Confederation Trail. Low speed, nonstop, 30-kilometer-an-hour way to help traffic move, which is not this intensive truck traffic. We have to find new ways, and this plan of where to put people is not enough, right? It's no offense to the consultants. This is not ready for prime time. We need to take transport, energy, the water infrastructure, and everything, look at it. This city has water pipes in the ground which are over 100 years old. We cannot stress the system. There is not enough capacity right now. I would warrant in our septic and sanitary lines to support adding, let's say, 10,000 more units of housing. And I know the mayor is very fond of the idea of doing accessory dwelling units, and to the point of maybe giving homeowners $10,000 to put a cottage in their backyard. But to do that, you got to rip up your yard and put in a new sewer line and a new water line, and potentially, because of drainage issues, because you no longer can absorb that much rainwater in a smaller yard because the footprint's smaller, you may now actually have to put in stormwater drainage in that yard to go out to the street. We're creating all sorts of capacity issues that have to be addressed. So please, I would ask council, have a big honking meeting in a big honking venue and put it all out on the table. And if it has to start at noontime and run till 8 in the evening, get everyone in and get everyone at the table, because this is big and we only have one shot. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mullen. Anything to add there, Nicholas, Stefan? Good? Okay. Just going back to council members. Comments, questions? Second question, Councilor Twill?
No, I noticed that, we talk about transit, transportation. I noticed Mike Cassidy's here. Want to thank Mike for, providing a transit system in this city, which is 20 years old? A system that when was first begun, there wasn't a whole lot of confidence. But with his blood, sweat, and tears, he's implemented a transit system in our city that I'm truly grateful for. So I want to thank Mr. Cassidy, and I know that there's going to be new ideas and new routes being explored, and the whole thing with adding more transit to our city. But I think we owe a great deal of gratitude to Mr. Cassidy. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Cassidy. Sure, if you, look, is it all right Mr. Cassidy speaks? Huh? Come right up, sir. Don't touch the mic.
Thank you very much, Councilor Twill, Mike Cassidy, Charlottetown. The comments that were made here this evening were good comments when we talk about zoning bylaws, where we are with the official plan, and how the two pathways have to tie in together. Brian Gillis resonates when he says he's on St. Peter's Road and the size of a lot and what you can do. So when we take everything that we hear this evening and we try to piece it together, we know that we need an official plan. The public transit system that we have today, thank you, Councilor Trio, for giving us a shout out. You look at where we are and the streets that we are traveling on and where the consultants have suggested corridor, housing development, no development. Our public transit system parallels, drives on a lot of those corridors, drives through those intersections, and we can take the official plan and we can develop transit further. Yes, University Avenue, every time you see that bus stop, people getting on, people getting off, count 1,001 to 1,010. By 1,010 to 1,011, the bus is moving again. But if you're behind us and we're stopping 10 to 12 times going up University Avenue, it's 10 seconds times 10 stops. But that's the size of the street that we have, and public transit does the best it can to start, stop, hold the lane, and get people on and off. But as we say in the back of some of our old buses, you could be behind 24 cars and not one transit bus. And you would still be perhaps a half a kilometer on St. Peter's Road some days or University Avenue when you think about it.
But remember too, if I can take off my T3 Transit transportation hat and put on a development hat where housing is very important, remember, there are strategic land masses along corridors in node intersections that are not 100 feet in depth. They're strategic, they're the right size, and they're ready for development. And this official plan speaks that the city could be open for development, and the idea of density, the idea of 8 stories, the idea of 10 stories is going to be very, very important for our city in those strategic areas. But yes, you need transportation. Yes, you need infrastructure. Yes, you may need wider streets. Someday we may have bus lanes. I don't know. But that's all part of the plan going forward. And we just can't stop and say we're not ready this evening. We have to say this evening we are ready. We know the different elements to create a terrific city. The official plan is one of them, and I think it's important we start here, but we have to listen to everybody. And our ears have to be able to take in the good information so we can have a proper plan. So please, we're not going to get all of it accomplished with one plan. The plan sets us on our path for another 20 or 25 years, because 20 to 25 years from this evening, from today, there's going to be another group. And they're going to be talking about similar things as we grow Charlottetown. Thank you.
Mr. Casti, thank you very much. Always good to hear from Mr. Casti. So I think we're looking to close the meeting, but I do want to say that I very much appreciated the input. I thank you very much for the consultants here tonight, our staff. And again, we live in a great city, and I think we make it better as we get more opportunities like tonight to have these public hearings. And if I go back to 2021, Maclean's Magazine listed us as the best place to live in Canada there, Councillor Beck. And that's, you know why? Because it's because of the people. Thank you very much. So I just need any introduction of new business? Motion to adjourn? Motion to adjourn? Councillor Drawn? Are you gone, Councillor Drawn?
In favor for me.
In favor for me.
Thank you. Thank you, Julie, Councillor McCabe, Deputy Mayor Yankop. Thank you a lot. Thanks a lot.
In favor.
Thanks, Councillor Drawn.